could you do this to me?
Make sure to subscribe and like the video. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Thank you for being here, and God bless you.
The funeral ended just after 2 o'clock. The bells at New Hope Baptist had rung soft and low. Spanish moss swayed over the church steps. The air smelled of rain, gardenias, and hot pavement. Dorothy Mae Sullivan stood near the fellowship hall door in her faded blue Sunday dress. Her white gloves were folded around a damp handkerchief. She had been the church secretary for 37 years, so she knew how to smile through sorrow. But that day, her smile was gone. Her mother, Ruth Sullivan, had been laid to rest beside her husband in Laurel Grove Cemetery. Ruth had lived 94 years. She had raised 3 children in a yellow house on East 37th Street, with a porch swing that creaked in the evening and a kitchen that always smelled of cornbread. People brought fried chicken, pound cake, deviled eggs, and sweet tea. They hugged Dorothy and said, "Your mama was a saint." Dorothy nodded each time. Then Walter came. He wore a charcoal suit that looked too expensive for grief. His slick white hair did not move in the Georgia heat. His gold watch caught the light when he reached for her hand. "Dorothy," he said softly, "Earl and I handled Mama's papers." Earl stood behind him, holding his hat with both hands. Dorothy looked from one brother to the other. "Papers?" Walter gave a small smile. "Mama didn't leave much. House expenses ate up most everything. Taxes, repairs, you know how these things go." Dorothy's throat tightened. She had typed church bulletins for decades. She knew what careful words sounded like. Walter pointed to a cardboard box on the floor. "She wanted you to have these." Dorothy looked down. Old Bibles, a few hymnals, Mama's church notes tied with string. That was all. Behind her, someone stopped talking. The room went quiet enough to hear ice shifting in a glass of sweet tea. Dorothy bent down and lifted the box. It was heavier than it looked, and Walter said the one sentence she would remember all night. "Best not make a fuss, Dot. Mama knew what she was doing." But did Mama really give her only a box? Dorothy drove home by way of East 37th Street. She did not plan to stop. Her old Buick seemed to slow by itself. There it was, Mama's house. The yellow painted faded. The porch rail leaned a little to the left. A fern still hung where Ruth used to water it every morning before breakfast. Dorothy remembered 1969 as clearly as yesterday. She was 17 then. Walter had just come home from business school in Atlanta, full of polished shoes and big plans. Earl was still a boy, running through the yard with a baseball glove. Mama stood on the porch, wiping her hands on an apron, calling everybody in before the biscuits got cold. Ruth used to say, "A house is not wood and nails, baby. A house is where somebody remembers your name." Dorothy had remembered.
She remembered paying Mama's light bill when Walter said he was short. She remembered bringing groceries after church.
She remembered sitting beside Mama through arthritis, cataracts, and the long nights when old gospel records played low in the parlor. Walter had not done those things. Still, he had stood in the church basement like a judge. Dorothy pulled to the curb. The house had renters now. A young woman stepped onto the porch with a toddler on her hip. She waved at Dorothy, polite but confused. Dorothy waved back. Renters. Walter had once told her the house barely paid for itself. He said the rent only covered repairs. He said Mama had signed everything over for convenience. Dorothy looked at the cardboard box on the passenger seat. One Bible had slid halfway open during the drive. A thin ribbon marker hung from it like a loose thread. For a moment, Dorothy almost reached for it. Then she heard Walter's voice again. Best not make a fuss. She drove away before the tears came. But why did Mama keep those old Bibles together? The next Sunday, Dorothy returned to New Hope Baptist. She almost stayed home. Grief makes a house feel too large. But Sunday had always been Ruth's day, and Dorothy could not bear the silence. She carried one of Mama's Bibles in her purse. Not the whole box, just one. It was black leather, cracked at the corners, with Ruth Sullivan printed in faded gold. Dorothy had chosen it because Mama had written dates beside favorite verses. Birthdays, funerals, baptisms, little pieces of a life. Pastor Henry Bell began with Psalm chapter 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Dorothy closed her eyes. She could hear Mama humming beside her. Then the pew behind her creaked. Walter sat down 2 rows back. Earl sat beside him, twisting his hat in his hands. Dorothy felt them before she saw them. Some people bring comfort into a room. Walter brought a draft. When the congregation stood to sing Blessed Assurance, Dorothy reached for the Bible. Her glove caught the loose edge of the cover. The Bible slipped. It struck the pew, bounced once, and fell open in her lap. Several thin papers slid out. Dorothy froze. Not church notes, not old bulletins. A folded sheet of yellowed legal paper was tucked beneath the inside cover, hidden under a loosened strip of leather. Her mother's handwriting covered the outside. For my Dorothy May. Dorothy's breath stopped. Around her, the church sang. Dorothy unfolded the paper 1 inch at a time. My sweet girl, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and the truth has not been told. Her eyes blurred. The next line was worse. The house was never meant for your brothers. Dorothy pressed one hand to her mouth. Then she saw the final sentence at the bottom, underlined twice. Don't trust Walter. And behind her, Walter stopped singing. Dorothy came to church carrying grief. She left holding proof that her own brother had lied. But that note was only the beginning, because Mama did not hide one secret inside that Bible. She hid a trail that led from the church basement to Savannah courthouse records, to 30 years of rent money that should have gone somewhere else. If you want to see what Dorothy finds next, make sure you are subscribed. And if this story made you think of someone who was cheated in silence, give it a like so part 2 can reach them too. In the next part, Dorothy opens Mama's papers and finds the first name on Walter's hidden rent ledger. And that name should have been impossible